Good evening, everyone. My name is Ambika Tenneti. I'm an environmentalist and an advocate who advocates for urban nature and immigrant well-being. As a PhD candidate at Daniels Forestry, University of Toronto, I have been immersed in the study of human-nature relationships. What are some of your favorite nature spaces? Do you have secret spaces and hidden gems that you enjoy visiting? How do you access those spaces? Who took you there? Did you find it by yourself? So these are some of the questions we need to think about when I'm talking about access to nature. A lot of the points of my speech seem to have been covered by Iraz. But I'm going to talk about something a little different. Because my topic is about how access to nature is complicated for recent racialized immigrants. I focused my research on community engagement for racialized immigrants in Toronto's urban forest. I explored inclusion opportunities and barriers faced by them. I found that access to nature is more than just about proximity. Again, Iraz and Melissa have pointed that out to you. In research, there are 6 dimensions to access. It is about accessibility, availability, affordability, adequacy, acceptability, and most importantly, awareness. People need to be aware where the nature space is. I was a recent immigrant when I started my research. I connected with organizations that encourage groups of immigrants to explore the city and its parks and ravines on foot, by bike, and public transit. I used that experience to help curate walks in nature in the city for new immigrants and for racialized international students. At every walk, I heard someone say that they did not know this park existed or that they could access this park so easily by public transit or foot. They had this belief that they needed a car to access such a space. During COVID, I took friends to nearby ravines because often they were unable to find the entrances despite my telling them where they were, because these entrances tend to be well hidden and look like somebody's backyards. So many of our Toronto parks, ravines, and trails are secret spaces and hidden gems, which makes us question, whose secret spaces are these? Who are they hidden from, and why? So what are some of the barriers that recent racialized immigrants face in accessing nature? I have seen some very dangerously steep paths that youth take to access ravines because that is the shortest route available to them where they live. Mothers with strollers and the families with the elderly people avoid going into ravines exactly for the same reason, steep slopes. And people avoid parks when they're located across a busy street or a busy road because it's dangerous for them along with their kids. Youth told me that they avoid going into nature because they are unable to identify poison ivy and giant hogweed. And every new season, we have media reports about coyotes and the seasonal return of ticks and mosquitoes. When you're not aware of what nature is like, you tend to be scared of it. And they're also scared of cyclists going too fast in the ravines and dogs running off leash. So we have that, and then we also know that immigrants feel a sense of belonging. Wherever they are, they feel a sense of belonging in nature, and they feel a sense of well-being. Again, Iraz and Melissa have pointed that out. Nature does not differentiate or discriminate. It does not judge them for their accent. It does not judge them for their skin color. But some white people in nature make racialized communities and immigrants feel excluded from these spaces. Immigrants report a fear of others and othering. Parents fear for the safety of their children and young daughters. Adult men and women fear verbal and or physical assault. Racialized women and young girls in hijab fear the gaze when they visit predominantly white neighborhoods. And black men and boys fear the police. Certainly, places are not racist, discriminatory, or angry, but people can be. All this can mar the experience of nature for recent racialized immigrants. So what are some things that can make immigrants feel more welcomed in these spaces? Facilities such as washrooms and water fountains encourage park visits, as do maps, signage, and well-lit paths. Families with children prefer play areas, and those with the elderly look for picnic tables and benches. Their park wish list included shelters from rain and wind. When asked about memories of parks from back home that they miss in parks here, immigrants mentioned food vendors, nature education materials, outdoor gyms, and recreational areas for youth. When planning and redesigning inclusive nature spaces, the question is not only who is at the table, but who is setting the table. Often, we read about parks and their visitor satisfaction surveys. Should we not try to find out who is not visiting these parks and why they are not visiting so that we can respond to their needs better? Decisions on parks and park infrastructure rely on public consultation, participation, including the user feedback. However, low-income, marginalized, and racialized communities are often left out of these conversations, leading us to question who is seen and who is heard. In nature-based activities, there is a low rate of participation among recent racialized immigrants. Is it that they are not interested in participating in these activities, or is it that organizations don't want them there, or that organizations don't know how to engage them? They are at a loss in figuring out what to do. The universal colorblind approach to engagement in nature excludes racialized communities. We need to remember that immigrants face language, financial, and transportation barriers when they arrive. Also, they are not aware of many of the resources that are available to them when they come here. Recent immigrants don't learn of nature-based programs because the system to welcome immigrants does not share these resources openly. This limits their knowledge about nature, nature spaces, and nature-based opportunities available. Finally, immigrants tend to live in areas that are struggling with social issues where organizations may think nature-based programming is irrelevant in this area. I want to stress that in this age of climate change and global warming, we need to build bridges across social justice and environmental issues and tackle both of them together. We need nature-based programming in immigrant neighborhoods to encourage their participation in nature advocacy efforts across the country. Humans are a part of nature. We recognize that. Community engagement in nature needs to change. Access to nature should not be a privilege, especially when that privilege is based on race. Toronto is a multicultural city, and nature in Toronto needs to be multicultural too. Access to nature matters. Thank you.